You can sleep enough and still lose the first hour. The alarm goes off. You stand there staring at the clock, coffee in your hand, opening the same tab 3 times because the last one vanished from memory. That is sleep inertia. It is the post-waking state where attention, reaction time, and working memory are still offline. The thumbnail version is simple, 60-minute fog. And if you blame yourself for being lazy, that blame is aimed at the wrong thing. You are looking at a brain state transition problem, not a motivation problem. In the first minutes after waking, your brain is awake enough to move, but parts of it are not yet set up to sort priorities or hold a task in mind. That is why the morning can feel like you are functioning through wet cement without being actually impaired in the way you think you are. The question is not why you cannot push harder. It is why the switch stays stuck after sleep has already ended. Sleep inertia is a temporary drop in alertness after waking. The prefrontal cortex, the system that supports judgment and working memory, does not snap online at the same speed as your eyes open. Researchers have measured this in reaction time tasks and simple memory tests after awakening. The brain can respond to light, sound, and movement while still being poor at selecting the right action. That gap matters. 2 things help explain it. First, sleep pressure does not vanish the moment you wake. Adenosine-related sleep drive has been building across the day before, and it does not disappear instantly at the alarm. Second, the sleep stage you wake from matters. Waking out of deeper non-REM sleep tends to produce worse grogginess than waking from lighter sleep. That pattern has been documented in sleep research for decades. There is also a basic biological logic here. The brain was built for a gradual transition from sleep to full alertness, not for an abrupt switch. A softer ramp can protect control systems from a hard start. But at 7 a.m., the same protection feels like delay. The result is familiar. The body is up, but the system that keeps behavior organized is still lagging. That lag is the state called sleep inertia. Once sleep inertia is in place, the first minutes of the day start to train the wrong habits. You check messages before you have chosen a real task. You reread the same line because the previous sentence did not stick. You open the laptop, then forget why you opened it. Those are not separate failures. They are what happens when the brain wakes in fragments and the focus system is still catching up. This is where the modern environment makes the state worse. The alarm is loud. The phone is already beside the bed. Notifications arrive before you have finished orienting yourself. Each cue asks for a choice, and every choice costs more when the brain has not fully regained control. In that state, the fastest response usually wins, not the best one. That is why the first hour can disappear into low-grade drift. The pattern also fits what sleep researchers call the sleep inertia effect. Performance is not all or nothing after waking. It improves over time, but the early window can still show slower response speed, poorer working memory, and more mistakes than later in the morning. If you judge yourself by that window, you call it character. The data point to state. The thesis phrase is accurate here. Your brain is still switching on. That is not a feeling. It is a description of a system that has not yet completed its transition from sleep control to waking control. The practical cost is clear. Your first decisions shape the rest of the morning, and the wrong start can keep you behind even after you feel awake. That raises the next question. If the brain is not broken, only delayed, what determines how long that delay lasts on some mornings and not others? The answer starts with what the wake-up itself is pulling the brain out of. That wake-up is not equal every day. In the review by Tassi and Muzid, sleep inertia is strongest right after awakening and then fades, but the size of the fog depends on how you wake. Coming up from slow-wave sleep, the deepest non-REM stage, tends to leave people more impaired than waking from lighter sleep. That is why one morning feels almost normal and another feels like a bad start you cannot shake for an hour. There is a detail many people miss. You can look awake while still performing badly. You can stand, talk, make coffee, even answer a simple message, yet reaction time and working memory can still lag. That split is documented in sleep inertia work. The outside of the body is online before the control system is fully online. So the problem is not that you are not trying. The problem is that the brain uses different clocks for movement and for judgment. Now the bigger picture. Modern life asks for full speed at the exact moment the brain is least ready. The alarm interrupts a biological rise that was meant to be gradual. Then the phone demands decisions, the commute demands judgment, and the inbox demands priorities. If you woke from a poor part of sleep, or if you are carrying sleep debt, that fog stretches longer. Circadian timing matters too. Waking at a biological low point makes the transition harder, which is why some people feel worse on work days than on free days even with the same number of hours in bed. Over time, that mismatch compounds. If every morning begins with 30 to 60 minutes of low-quality thinking, the cost is not only lost time. It is rushed replies, small mistakes, and a running sense that you are behind before the day has even started. That can become self-doubt. Maybe I am lazy, maybe I am just bad at mornings. But repeated morning fog is not proof of character. It is a repeated state transition problem. That is the identity shift. Once the person names the state, the shame loses its target. The same individual who writes a messy email at 7:10 can think clearly by 8 o'clock. The self is not changing by the hour. The state is. Performance psychology has long shown that people do better when task demand matches current state instead of fighting it. So the real question is not why you lack discipline. It is what wake-up sequence shortens the fog before the day starts asking for judgment. The fix works because it changes the transition, not the person. Sleep inertia fades on its own, but you can shorten the period by lowering the load on the prefrontal system, the control network that holds goals steady and filters distractions. In plain terms, do not ask for hard judgment before the brain is ready for hard judgment. First, give the body a stable wake cue. Keep the first minutes consistent. Wake at a regular time, open the blinds or get bright light, and move your body. Morning light strengthens circadian wake drive through the retino-hypothalamic pathway, and movement helps the arousal systems climb. The goal is not a magic switch. It is a cleaner ramp. Second, protect the first task from complexity. Use one simple action that does not require major decisions. Water, wash, dress, make the bed, short walk, low stakes check-in. This reduces the number of choices while the brain is still regaining control. Fewer choices means less strain on the system that is lagging behind. Third, delay judgment-heavy work until the state has improved. No important email, no planning session, no conflict reply in the first 20 to 60 minutes if your mornings are bad. That is not avoidance. It is matching task demand to brain state. This is where neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to learn from repeated patterns, matters. Repeatedly pairing waking with light, movement, and simple actions teaches the brain that morning begins with orientation, not pressure. The cue becomes familiar, and familiar cues are easier to move through. Over time, the wake-up itself becomes less costly. So the rewire is practical and narrow. Stabilize waking, reduce early choices, then ask for more. That is how you work with the state transition instead of fighting it. Bring that back to the scene at the alarm. The red clock is not proof that you are failing the day. It is proof that the day is starting before your brain has finished coming online. If your brain is still switching on, you do not need more shame. You need a better morning state setup. Start with the environment cue. Put the phone away from the bed so the first action is standing, not scrolling. Let light hit your eyes early. Keep water where you can reach it. Make the first few steps almost automatic. Then use identity as a rule, not a slogan. I do not evaluate my day in the first foggy minutes. I wake, orient, and then decide. That order matters. First stabilize waking, then add low-stakes actions. Only later ask for hard thinking. This phased setup is what shortens the 60-minute fog in real life. Not by force, by design. That also resolves the opening problem. The hour did not disappear because you were lazy. It disappeared because wakefulness arrives in stages, and you were asking for full cognition before the last stage arrived. Your brain was never broken. It was still switching on. That is the thesis, stated plainly. The first hour feels unusable because the transition into wakefulness is not instant, and the answer is to build a morning that fits that biology. If this changed how you see your mornings, the next one goes deeper into how to build a wake-up sequence that actually fits the brain. You are not a bad morning person. You are a person whose brain needs a better ramp.